This is the first that we're doing officially. I don't know if you know this, Chris, but I don't know if you've ever performed for the Brookdale property down in Battery Park City. Have you done them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were, so that was my gig a long time ago. I opened that property and I'm very good friends with Whitney. And so Whitney was inviting me and all of our community in Montclair to sort of join in the Juilliard performances that you were doing. And I said, well, can we just do it ourselves? It's hard to get our folks sort of connected on her platform or your platform. And it was like, we don't do Zoom codes. We have this platform that people just put their phone number in and get automatically zipped over there. So I reached out and I talked to Juilliard and they said we'd be happy to, I mean, we're technically in the tri-state area, so so we're not New York, but a lot of our clients, a lot of our residents, our customers are your customers. They're people that frequent the arts in New Jersey, from New Jersey. They go into New York, and a lot of them are former New Yorkers. There are a lot of opera buffs and theater buffs and people that are really into music. So it's sort of I think a good marriage. Just because we're out in the burbs doesn't mean we're not
Yeah,
a part of things. So
absolutely.
we've been really impacted, as I'm sure you have been, as the audience. It's devastating as regular theater goers to not be able to go to the theater. So I can imagine as a performer to not have an audience. So we're happy to be that little bit of audience for you today. So I'm just gonna spotlight you and let you take it away, Chris.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Michelle.
And I do encourage everybody to share your video so that we can see, and we can even put it on the big screen so that you can see everybody's faces. This is really more of an interactive. These are all actors today, actors and performers. And you could tell us a little bit about yourselves. That would be great.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. We're really excited to be here. We're excited that we're your first show for the Montclair Center. So that's exciting. I think we're the only group that's all actors. So we're all in the drama division. We're in our 4th year, and thankfully that is the last one. It doesn't go past 4, which is, it's the only, I'm in the graduate MFA, and that's the only one that goes 4 years. So it's been a journey. It's been amazing. We're excited to share some aspects of it with you. I'm originally from South Bend, Indiana. So if we have any Notre Dame fans, that was my alma mater. I grew up down the street from Notre Dame, and I'll let other members of my group introduce themselves, and then we'll get into some performance. And again, this is an exchange, so feel free to ask any questions about Juilliard or just the life of an actor. We really love getting to know all the spaces that we get invited to. So I just open that up. And I'll pass it off to Elena.
Hi, everybody. My name's Elena. I'm a 4th year acting student at Juilliard. I'm originally from Smyrna, Nashville, Tennessee. So if you know anything about UT or Vandy, you know more than me, because I don't know anything about that, but I know that they're there. And I'm actually here right now. It's been my first trip back to see my family. Since the beginning of the pandemic, everybody became fully vaccinated. I hit my 2 weeks past my 2nd dose yesterday, so I flew directly here and just hanging out with my family now. But so sending all of y'all the Tennessee love. But yeah, so grew up doing a lot of musical theater and doing a lot of music and involvement, and kind of through that ended up falling in love with acting. And so did a lot of that in my high school. And then auditioned and was lucky enough to get into Juilliard and moved to New York City, which was crazy, but have been living there ever since. And so, yeah, really happy to be here. Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. Really excited to meet everybody. Alrighty, I'm going to pass it off to Sean.
Hi there, I'm Sean. So great to be here. Really, like you said, Michelle, it's like during this time, any audience we can get is such a pleasure. So it's so great to be able to connect. Yeah, I'm an actor. I'm also a largely self-taught musician. I have my guitar here today, and I'll probably share some music a little later on. Um, yeah, and one of the things that I've been thinking about and focusing a lot on artistically this year is music. It's one of those things that I can do alone in my room, to sing, play, improvise, and yeah, I'm very grateful for it during this last year when I've been kind of separated from my classmates through this medium. It's been a really important lifeline for me. Um, so I love to talk about acting, and I love to talk about music as well. And yeah, thanks for having us, Rosie.
Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be with you all this afternoon. My name's Rosie, and if you can't already hear yet, I'm from Australia. I obviously moved here to New York about 4 years ago to start studying at Juilliard, and we were all in the same class, obviously. But before that, I lived in London for a year. I studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art there. And prior to that, I was at Melbourne University for about 6 months. I thought I would be a lawyer, and it didn't last very long. I probably could have been clued in by the fact that most of my subjects, the extra subjects that I'd taken, were creative writing and nothing to do with law. But I only lasted 6 months, and then I went to London and had a fabulous time there. And while I was there, I auditioned for Juilliard, and I've had a fabulous time here too. It's been very tough sometimes. I miss home a lot, but I'm excited for us to graduate and get out into the world and take up the life of a jobbing actor, hopefully. I'll pass it back to Chris, but it's lovely to meet you all.
I love that, Rosie. I've never heard you say a jobbing actor. That's great. Yeah. So before we, talk a little bit about the school, and I'll run us through just the journey about where we start. Juilliard's they bring you in because they have so much time with 4 years. They bring you in and they start you really, really slow. There's a methodical pace to this program that basically you don't even start doing fully mounted productions till year 3, and then year 4, which is the one we spent during the pandemic, is normally on the main stage, which we never got to. So we had to pivot, like all of us in this time, and this has been our medium. So we've been creating projects on Zoom for the last year, and in the fall we did 6 plays with it would be this, and then a lot of us had green screens on the background, and I even had a green screen mannequin that I acted with, and then they superimposed my partner into the same shot. So we made a lot of creative pivots this year, and it's been, I think it's been hard at times, but also we just actually had the opportunity. We moved the whole 4th year division to Connecticut, and we shot plays with a camera crew. So, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. And as difficult as it was to work with this medium and acting on a webcam, it got us so comfortable and familiar with proximity and allowing the camera to see us, versus on a stage. You really have to, your goal as an actor is to reach the furthest seat in the house all the way back up top. And it just, that whole thing was reversed this year. But I saw Jeff, the opera addict, in the house. So I know Sean, we used to have an opera singer with us who took a leave of absence this year. He was a countertenor. He was an amazing, amazing artist, but we kept some of his repertoire. So Sean, if you want to start with that lovely
Yeah,
ballet.
wonderful. Yeah. So this is for all the classical music fans, this is Franz Schubert's Ave Maria, which I'm sure a lot of people will recognize. Yeah, and like Chris said, we had a friend in our group, Sam, who's studied opera strictly. So I won't be able to sing it, with his proper operatic tenor, but I'll try to do it justice. And this is an example of the repertoire that an opera student at Juilliard would learn and know really well. So this is Ave Maria. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Maria, gratia plena, Maria, gratia plena, Ave, Ave Dominus, Dominus tecum, benedicta tui mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Ave Maria. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, so it's music. We've had the lovely fortune of having musicians in our ensemble. I was not one of them, but in all these things with Juilliard, it's an ensemble that, even though I wasn't the musician, I feel very blessed and gifted with what you can learn from musicians, and just the journey of what it is to open yourself up to, as a viewer would, how music moves us. And I've gotten to take that and sort of put it through acting, which was nice. We occasionally would improv with jazz musicians during our scene work. So it almost, like, as an actor, when I found myself working with music, it felt like a cheat code. Similar to how composers, you watch a horror movie on mute and it's not scary at all. So Juilliard's been fascinating in just the ability to have those other disciplines like dance and music. Hopefully the goal is that you have collaboration occasionally and you all excel in your art together. But I would love to take us through, if we have any Shakespeare fans. We are a classical theater school, so we use Shakespeare as our gymnasium. And, a lot of us come in with varying degrees of experience, but by the time you're through the program, you haven't mastered the Bard, because no one could, but you've had an intimate relationship with Shakespeare for 4 years. And I love to take us through a little workshop of what it would be like after I get cast in a role and approach the text of Shakespeare, because, as we know, it is endless, the pursuits you could, to get it in your body. But this is something I would do probably a couple days before the first reading, where the cast gets together and reads the play, just so that I can start making the words mine and sort of feel their impact on my body and my imagination. So it's a really easy trick, and it's just called traveling stress. And basically it's picking a word in the phrase and emphasizing that word just to see which ones you prefer and which ones start telling the story more effectively. So I'll work with a bit of text from Henry V, and this is the line of chorus. Some of you may recognize it. It goes, "Thus with imagined wing our swift scene flies, in motion of no less celerity than that of thought. Suppose that you have seen the well-appointed king at Hampton Pier embark his royalty and his brave fleet with silken streamers, the young Phoebus fanning." So that's the text that we're going to play with right now. And you know, on this lovely Saturday morning, as you can see, I just kind of said it. We don't really know what's going on. It's not really coming through any point of view. It's just the words. So as I begin to try to paint a picture, what I would do, if we just take the first line, which is "Thus with imagined wing our swift scene flies," pick a word in the phrase and see what it does for me. So let's pick the first word, "thus." It just sounds something like this. "Thus with imagined wing our swift scene flies." So already it feels like, I don't know, that to me felt like the story's coming out of a cannon a little bit. I'm like trying to gain your attention with the first word. If we pick a more colorful word, like imagined, let's see what that does for the storyteller. "Thus with imagined wing our swift scene flies." So it begins to influence me. And, you know, who knows what story we're telling at this point, but we're telling a different one. Let's try the last word of the phrase and see if we can push the thought to the very last word, because oftentimes that's what Shakespeare's text is designing to do. "Thus with imagined wing our swift scene flies." Okay, so that felt like a discovery to me. And I would just do this, kind of working with that and diagnosing how I feel after I spend that little bit of time with it. And there are varying degrees of what we do with the language. Obviously, you don't just have to pick one word each verse line that you tackle, but it's just a little bit more time so that you're not trying to execute as much as you're trying to have the text influence me. Because what we want is the character to come through me, who I am, and out of me believing that I'm coming up with those words on the spot. So let's take the full passage and I'll play around with this and you'll see if you hear things differently and if the story starts to present itself to you. "Thus with imagined wing our swift scene flies, in motion of no less celerity than that of thought. Suppose that you have seen the well-appointed king at Hampton Pier embark his royalty and his brave fleet with silken streamers, the young Phoebus fanning." So that's a little bit of what I would attempt to do. And I love, yes, Jeff, that Shakespeare at his birthday party, which was only a couple of days ago, right? That's a little bit of how I would just in my bedroom work with this text so that when I come to the reading, it's more alive in my body. And I can bring something, you know, it's not to execute character. It's not to execute our preconceived notions of what the production is going to be. It's just to bring myself to the work. So thank you for letting me share that.
That was awesome, Chris.
I thought I'd jump in after Chris has given us that wonderful session about how we would approach some text, and I thought I'd share with you. I'm a Shakespeare nerd as well. Jeff, love your photo you've put up. This is one of my favorite monologues in Shakespeare, taken from one of my favorite scenes. Not from my favorite play, but this is Emilia from Othello. And if anybody knows the story of Othello, this scene, in my opinion, is one of the most tragic in the play because in my opinion, in this scene, the tragedy of the play is nearly avoided. these two women have this moment where they come so close to being very honest with each other, and they share a similar plight, and they just miss each other. And I find it deeply, deeply tragic. But Shakespeare does give to Emilia this fabulous monologue that I think is sadly still very relevant today. But I think it's pretty remarkable that in the time that he lived, he had the sight to give this character of his this beautiful monologue. So this is Emilia from Othello. But I do think it is their husbands' faults if wives do fall. Say that they slack their duties and pour our treasures into foreign laps, or else break out in peevish jealousies, throwing restraint upon us. Or say they strike us, or scant our former having in despite. Why, we have Gauls, and though we have some grace, yet have we some revenge. Let husbands know their wives have sense like them. They see and smell and have they see and smell and have their palates both for sweet and sour, as husbands have. What is it that they do when they change us for others? Is it sport? I think it is. And doth affection breed it? I think it doth. Is't frailty that thus errs? It is so too. And have not we affections, desires for sport, and frailty, as men have? Then let them use us well. Else let them know the ills we do, their ills instruct us so. Thank you.
So cool. Love that. I love that. So I'll embrace the medium of Zoom lag and all of this right now, and just open it up. If we do have any questions of us, also feel free to use the chat. But yeah, I'll just and no pressure. But I always want to make it available if people do have questions about anything, about our work, about Juilliard. About growing up in South Bend, Indiana, or Australia, a far more exciting place.
And you can just unmute yourself and ask the question if you like. That's fine.
Good morning, or I should say good afternoon. You guys are doing a great job. I just wanted to, I have a couple of questions. After graduation, what is going to be, I guess, like your field? Like, do you want to go into Broadway acting? Do you want to go into movies and anything like that? Just music? I don't know. That's just a general question. Like, what are your aspirations after college?
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. It's very personal for each of us. I know the quick answer is we were trained for the theater. We have a love for it, and film and TV pay off those student loans the quickest. So to do both, I think would be lovely. For me, I would love to be part of the golden age that is television right now. It's an exciting time. I feel like really amazing stories and like original content is on TV right now. But there's also we have a playwriting program at Juilliard. So it's like 2 years, and it is such a gift to just work with a playwright on a new play. And it's so much more different than when you get a script and you feel like you got to catch up. Like I'm always like, oh, I got to catch up and give this thing life, as opposed to like being with it as the play and you are discovering it. It's a marvelous creative process that I love. And that would, I don't know if it would take me to Broadway. It'd probably take me off Broadway to me to play at that point. But I think that's what I would love to do. I'd love to be in the genesis period of like being in the first reading of a play that's far too many pages long and live with it and see how far it could get to. Maybe it could get to Broadway. But what about my fellow group members?
That's so exciting, Chris. We actually, too, Sharon, our next project at the end of this semester is to workshop new plays that the playwright fellows at Juilliard have written, which is really exciting for all the reasons Chris just mentioned, but also the roles were kind of more or less written for us or using us, our class. So it's a really exciting thing that we're going to be able to explore really soon, or maybe have already started. Elena, we haven't started yet, but
yeah, Rosie and I have been working actually on a new play called The Experience by one of the current playwrights, Jonna, and it's been really interesting watching the progression of it come into like fruition, which we're doing our like final performance of it today. But it's really wild being in a room and thinking that like, oh, I know kind of my course of action for this play. And then I remember last week we got a new copy of the play like that morning. I didn't have time to read it until rehearsal that evening, and I'm in rehearsal and they're like, all right, Elena, it's your new monologue. And it's a 3-page monologue that I've never touched before. And I was like, wow, okay, let's do it. Which kind of just happens when you're working on plays. And I think that that's something that we as actors, I can speak for myself, I really enjoy that collaborative environment. And I think that that can come in through any sort of medium, whether it's like film and television or plays. But I think you might see it a little bit more when you're working on new works that have kind of like that that air of anything can change between now and the next time I read this play. So yeah, that's something that's really enjoyable that we're going to work on. I think finishing up today for that show. Hopefully it'll have a lot more life past us. And it'll be great for Jonna. And then we're starting on a new play. I think Sean, Rosie, and I are working on something in about 2 weeks.
Oh,
so that'll
really
be fun.
Really excited for that. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to answer your initial question, Sharon, I really love films, and my aspiration is really to make movies. And Chris kind of touched on this. You know, the last year has been really difficult in terms of our training because, you know, we rely on the sensitive listening, the sensitive kind of energetic listening of another human being in space. That's our bread and butter. That's our material. So being separated from that, we've had to, you know, find ways through Zoom and through the bubble to work. But the silver lining for me has been just putting in time on a camera, which I'm very squeamish about seeing myself. And I'm, you know, all of my insecurities and vanity comes up. But in the same way that in the theater, I've put in however many hours since I was middle school when I first started doing theater. This year has been a lot of that for me. And maybe some of my classmates can speak on that too, but it's been like, oh, as technical as like, here's how to frame myself properly. Here's how to light myself properly. And then as specific as watching back a tape of myself, a self-tape that I've done, and being able to objectively learn and grow as a camera actor, and being able to use the medium as opposed to getting caught in my head about it. Yeah, but I really love movies. I really, that's kind of my passion.
So Sean, when you're making those big Marvel blockbusters, you'll be really good at the green screen and acting, right? You'll be like, no problem, I got
right.
this.
Right. Well, and in many ways, like green screen acting is I watched this great interview with Scarlett Johansson, who's in a lot of those Marvel movies, and she talks about it as it's the purest kind of acting. In many ways, it's actually very theatrical, because you have to, with your imagination, like Chris was saying, with the green screen and the mannequin head, you have to be able to look at, you know, a tennis ball and play an emotional scene that then gets CGI'd into, you know, you're talking to a dragon or a monster or something. Yeah, so hopefully, yeah, see you guys in the Marvel universe. What about you, Rosie?
I think you've all answered it in the same vein. I mean, I think honestly, beggars can't be choosers, and I just like to be employed, quite honestly. I'd love to just get a job anywhere, but yeah, if I could choose, I'd love to be able to do it all. I mean, the theater is my first love, so I'd always want to come back to it, but you don't make a lot of money, so it would be nice to pay off some debt and to do all and to be able to be a jack of all trades, so to speak. So, and I think Chris is totally spot on. The television is going through such a golden age. There's so much being produced and such brilliant content. And especially now, I think what's really exciting to me is that series, they're like a lot of more limited series, or a season will only last 12 episodes, and it will be 3 years as opposed to like 7 years, and something like that would really scare me. I would hate to sign a contract that would be like 7 or 8 years long, and you're locked into the same character, and you know, the writers might change after 2 seasons, and yeah, so to be able to constantly change the material that I was working on, the characters I was working on, the people I was working with, and the medium as well would be really exciting to me as a career.
I have another question if nobody else does. How did your family, your parents, your family feel about you going into the arts? Because my daughter, that was her major, and I was like, okay, I'm going to support you, but I really wish you would have really decided to become a lawyer. You said you were, but I mean, me as a parent, you know, I supported her. She, you know, she did well. She started on like dance school, but that shut down during the pandemic. It was in Harlem, but then she reinvented herself, and she's working South Korea now, and you know. So how does your family feel about the path you had chosen?
Well, I know my poor parents, my older sister is an actor as well. So they said yes to her. They had to say yes to me. But I think, you know, obviously, like with anything, they're scared for me always, and hate to see me get my heart broken. And of course, but they also know that nothing makes me happier. And maybe one day I'll sympathize with them a bit more if I have children of my own. I'll know what I put them through. But I'm very lucky. They're very supportive of me. I think Mum wishes I was 10,000 miles closer to home. But they are very supportive, and I think that I would be miserable doing anything else. So it's the price of it.
Yeah. You have to go with your passion.
Yeah. Yeah. Elena, you can go.
Sure. Yeah, I think I've been preparing my parents since I was born that this is probably going to happen. So they've had a lot of time to become accustomed to the idea, which is really awesome. But I am also very, very lucky in that they have been incredibly supportive throughout my time of life, I guess, always wanting to, you know, be a part of everything that like was happening at my school and community theater. I was always a part of them. And, you know, they drove me to all of those rehearsals and stayed in the parking lot for hours while I was rehearsing. They've been the reason, and probably the only reason why I'm able to do this right now is just because of their support. And I think I got very lucky because they also love movies and they love music. And though neither one of my parents right now or anybody in my family has ever touched the arts really, visual artist in some form. So we have art just like very much as a beloved thing in the family. And so I think it's very intriguing and exciting to them that like we get to do things that like they'll see on TV. Like it's always fun. And at first when I began auditioning for things that, you know, might be on TV or might be on stage and things like that, I at first was trying to hold it back of being like, I don't want anybody to get too excited or get their heart broken in the way that my heart gets broken. But it's been lovely because they've been like, oh, we just want to know what's happening in like the industry, and it's exciting to them. And they're like, it's very cool that we get to read the scripts before they come out on TV and things like that. And I think it's just very lovely that they're so interested in the behind the scenes, because it is so vastly different than working on computers and being a computer analyst or working as a teacher in a school. It's just a very different world. And so they're very interested in this industry. And so I think that has made the transition easier than had I been something that was similar to them. They were very much like, you need to go and do something completely different. And it's exciting, I think. I hope. But yeah.
Elena, I have a question for you. Where's your accent?
Juilliard crushed it out of me.
Did it really?
Well, it's interesting, you know, in Tennessee, I don't know if we have any Southern folk in the room right now, but it's, you know, it's like there's parts of Tennessee where it's very thick. Like I'm going to see my grandparents today, and they have the stuff that when you listen to a recording and you're trying to learn a Southern accent, they're what you listen to. And so it's interesting. I go to New York and I'm not around that anymore. And so it only comes out in a few words like get and get. I know that was something in school that they drilled into me. They're like, you can't, if the character's not from Tennessee, you can't say get all the time.
Can you do it now? Can you slip back into it?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, oh gosh. I'll be talking to my family about the going up to Kingsport, and then we'll go and have a nice time and maybe go to Dollywood and we'll get some barbecue and we'll go have a nice time. And it's whenever I talk to my family, it gets a little bit more thick. But then whenever I'm around my folks here with the lovely Juilliard School and the lovely NYC, it becomes a little bit, you go into a different place because we're always performing a little bit. And so I'm performing the NYC Juilliard student. When I'm home, I can sink back into the Southern belle that I hope to be.
Trick to the trade. I love it.
It works very good when you're waitering in New York City, and it's all of a sudden that Southern charm that people love, and then they'll tip you more. But yeah.
Rosie, do you do American accents?
Oh, does she? Go ahead, Rosie.
Yeah, Rosie's great. She's had to do them on and off for the last 4 years really beautifully.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yes, I do an American accent. I don't know. I'd be embarrassed to do it now if I don't have text to do it with. But yeah, we do. Actually, funnily enough, I've made Chris do an Australian accent in a scene once.
Really?
Yeah, and he was
good
at it.
I love doing that.
Well, I've already typecast all four of you into movies, so I'm not going to embarrass you, but I did already. I've compared you to like 4 actors, like in different types of movies. So I hope to see you guys on the big screen, little screen, Broadway, off Broadway.
Thank you.
I wish you luck.
Jeff had a question. Are your performances from this last year available to watch anywhere online?
Yeah, so can you access it from J Media, or do you need a login?
You need a login. The only thing that'll be available coming up is Plano and Life is a Dream.
We do have the most exciting performances that are coming up, where they're the ones we moved to Connecticut for and shot. They are in the editing bay right now. And I think they're going to be available late May, maybe early June. And we have we have 3 films that we made. So Elena, Rosie, and I are in a play called Plano by Will Arbery that we brought to screen. And Sean is in a play called Life is a Dream by Calderon. And then the other play is Cardboard Piano. I forget the playwright, but yeah, like we're so excited and nervous to see these things. Juilliard's never done this. And we're the guinea pigs, but also potentially I like to think of us as like something more epic than a guinea pig. Like it was such a trust in us and the family we've built for 4 years, and then going for it. I mean, a normal television episode, right? So like 33 pages, a half hour, they take about a week to shoot. And we did these 3 plays in, I think 9 days. And each play was only afforded, like for Plano, we did 3 days and we had the camera crew, I think, for 10 hours. So we did about 90 pages in 30 hours, which is just madness and the coolest artistic moment ever. You know, all of us, yeah, I'm just so proud of my ensemble and the fellow actors that I got to work with in these 4 years, because we really brought it, and we would hope for y'all to check that out when it becomes available.
Yeah, please, if you remember to send us a link or something, or a reminder, or a way to get there, because I'm sure that everybody on this call would love to see you guys in action. I have a question, Chris. Was that you were live on a stage and it was being filmed, or were you on Zoom and separate? Like, how did that work logistically?
So everyone did it different. Plano, in the theater, if it's staged, it says on a porch in Texas. So we just brought it to a real porch in Connecticut. And that was our stage. We rented housing. It was actor housing, and we shot on the house we were living in.
And the crew all wore masks, and we had quarantined before for a few weeks, and we got to take our masks off and actually film, and we were allowed to touch each other and be close and do all that. It was very, very, very special.
Yeah, because it was like over 3 weeks, because we had to get tested 4 times and quarantine in a room for the first 5 days just alone.
Yeah, it's interesting the way television is. It's a little maddening to watch television now, because some shows actually incorporate the quarantine and the pandemic into the episodes, and some don't. And so when they're not wearing, oh my God, stand back. It's like, it's almost maddening sometimes to watch that. And it's great to sort of understand the process, how it's okay if you have to kiss your counterpart because you've both quarantined and you've both been tested, and the crew that's filming it is also taking precautions. So you don't see that all obviously behind the scenes. But I have a question, or really a comment about intimacy, because like when you're watching live theater, there's something, even though you're in a theater with hundreds of other people, and the actors are, in my case, I can't afford the good seats, so they're pretty far away from me. I still have this, Lily Tomlin called it the goosebump experience, right? In her, one woman show. I still get it, right? And I have to tell you, I got it today. I got it. And it's amazing to me how that intimacy actually can translate if the actors are good. Do you all agree? Does everybody on the call sort of concur? Like, I got the goosebump experience. And so I wonder, I guess there is a question in here. Do you feel it? Like when I guess monologues sort of lend itself to, they lend themselves to talking to that, what is that, fourth wall or fifth wall or whatever that, imaginary, because you're just talking to yourself out loud. But so I can sort of see that way the monologue can be really, really intimate. Like, I thought, Rosie, you were looking at me. I was like, oh my God, she's talking to me. And I was like, oh, that's so weird. Like, so I wonder, what are you looking at? What are you thinking about? Like, when is it the same as being on the stage? I can't imagine it is. Anyway, that's a long question.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for saying that. That means a lot to me, because it sometimes doesn't feel like that on Zoom, especially because there's not that live feedback. You don't, and like, I have felt that as an audience member, the goosebumps, and I have felt it as a performer. And I know what that exchange is, and I know the fullness and the richness of what that exchange is and can be. But there are moments that I have felt it on Zoom as well, where it feels, the way I describe it, it's like those breathless moments where life and art and love and everything comes crashing together, and the air seems to be just like sucked out of the room. And I think to do that on Zoom, I know everyone here as well relied on a lot of like our Alexander technique, which is something that we learn and train in all 4 years. And to give you I don't know how to give an abridged version of what the Alexander technique is, but it's about, it's all physical based, and essentially it's about, in my opinion, it's about ease through your performance, carrying ease through your performance and allowing thoughts and feelings to come in and out and flow in and out. And if I use my Alexander technique to take in the computer and imagine where everybody in the audience is watching this performance and how far away they are, how close they are, it then hopefully it gives me a reason to do it. I think it makes it special to imagine people watching. I mean, I did also, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was in Australia doing classes because I had to go home, and the Alexander technique was very, very helpful then to try and bring everyone into your own performance space, even though you're miles and miles apart.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's yeah. When I find it, it's just simple human recognition, where it's like, if I allow you to see me, the irony is, I think people see themselves in it. It's unifying, and it takes vulnerability and courage, but it's like Rosie said, it's just that relaxation and that getting to that very honest essence of what we all have as human beings.
We had another question from Marie Claire. What techniques do you use to learn your lines?
I think that it really takes a lot of practice and gaining that muscle of memorizing, and then especially for these like self-tapes that we're doing, where sometimes they're upwards of like 15 pages that we have to memorize in the course of like only like a couple of days. And then you have to really memorize it, and it has to be in your body, and then you have to kind of forget it. But for these like long shows that we do, especially Shakespeare, a lot of that is very musical. And so sometimes it's rhyming, sometimes it's those things. And so when you do the work that Chris kind of touched on, of choosing the words that you want to emphasize, the length and the breath, once you kind of have all of that work done, it sometimes will make it a lot easier. But it really is, it just takes a lot of time and effort. And I remember sometimes for the first 2 years of school, I didn't really touch on like a huge amount of text whenever we were doing shows, me personally. But then in our third year, a project that Sean and I did called Cowboy Mouth, I was met with like page-long passages. And it was like it was about 40 minutes of just Sean and I on stage, which was the most text that I had really had to work on in forever. And so I remember regaining that muscle of what it means to know these lines very, very deeply in your body for not letting up for about 45 minutes of just us. And I think for that, I remember doing a lot of dances in my room of like, some people do it very differently. I think when I have a big amount of text like that, I'll have to stand and physically embody it. Like I remember it was like, I wake up and the sun shines down on me and you're there and I hold you, and like having to really physicalize it to get it in our body. And then obviously that's not what I do on stage. It becomes like the sun was there and you were there and I was holding you, and you can have that kind of things like that. But it is like everybody has their own different thing. I always record my partner's lines and then like leave space and take a breath. And it's like having somebody run lines with you consistently. That's what I do. Cool. Yeah, Rosie. Yeah, that app is great.
Yeah, so in the chat, Rosie said that there's an app called Cold Read that helps you learn your lines. Isn't it amazing technology? I mean, it's extraordinary. I call them the lemonade moments when we've been all of our community, everybody across the world. I mean, we were all making these lemonade moments, right? We've been throwing a whole bunch of. I like lemons, but I like lemonade too. Before we have to go, because I know we've gone a little over the time allotted, I think it's really cool that Marianne, who lives part-time in Texas, when you first said Plano, I was like, so that's a play either about Plano, Texas, or Plano lenses, people that just wear lenses that don't have a prescription. But Marianne happens to live next door to Plano, Texas, and she's excited about seeing that play. And I don't know what to say. This has really been fantastic. I'm so glad to meet you all and to hear about the process and to really it's for us, for all of our the people on the call that are real theater buffs and music buffs and people that love the arts. This is such a treat, I think. Does anybody else want to just throw in a quick comment for these talented youngsters?
Ditto everything you said.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a special affinity for Juilliard anyway, but yeah, wonderful. I can't wait to see the recording. I want to catch it all again at my leisure.
Thank you,
Marianne, I will say, oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, I was just, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's funny, Marianne, the show is a very, in Plano is a very interesting show where Plano, Texas is this kind of other being. And it's quite crazy how many people have come into each of the cast members' lives and have some sort of I've mentioned, oh, I'm doing Plano, this show, and I've had more people than you would think be like, oh, I lived in Plano. Oh, I lived right across from Plano. One of our cast members keeps getting calls from Plano, Texas, having never, oh, well, she lived there for a little, but it's just very funny how, and once you see the show, I'm sure you'll understand, but how weird that is. That's very funny. I hope you had a good time.
It's a very up and coming, busy town. And people are moving there from, it's North Texas, very, very different. Like you were saying about Tennessee, we drive through Tennessee, the entire state of Tennessee, when we go back to New Jersey or to Texas. Yeah. And we've stopped and people have accents or they don't,
right.
Very, very interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you all very much. This is wonderful. Michelle, thank you for making this happen. I mean, it's great. Yeah.
Susan, thank you for the goosebumps. And I thank you all. Thank you, Chris, for making this happen and for your troupe. And I wish you all the best and breaking your legs and all that stuff. Looking forward to seeing you wherever you want to be, on the stage, on the screen. We'll be looking out for you all because you're really super talented. And
I'll send you the links to RSVP.
Thanks, everybody.